Hello, hello, hello. All right, so here's what we're doing. We've talked about circumference in the area of a circle. Okay, so you should be done with those. You've taken the 8A quiz. Today, what we're going to talk about is the area of composite figures using what you've learned before and what we've practiced on in the beginning of the year. And we've introduced a few. You've had some review. Okay, you should know the basic area formulas: area of a rectangle, area of a triangle, area of a parallelogram, and now you know how to find the area of a circle. Okay. After the composite figures, then we'll have the review for 9A, 9B. That will be your assignment on the 24th and 25th. And then on the 28th, you'll have the quiz for 9A, which is going to be circumference and area of a circle. Then we'll start working on surface area that day also. And then you'll take on the 30th and 31st, you'll take the 9B quiz. All right, that's pretty much the outline of it. 9A is an essential. 8A is not, and is 8A and I believe 9B are not essentials. Okay, let's get started. So as we look, if you look at these two shapes, these should very much be review. All right, you're looking at the height. When we look at a parallelogram, you're going to take the base times the height. This is the height. This is the base. This shape, this side over here, is just the side. You need it when you calculate the perimeter. You don't need this when you're calculating the perimeter. You need the height only when you're calculating the area. Okay, so you would just simply say that you're going to have 15 yards times 13 yards to find the area. Notice what we're going to have there then. 15 times 13. Notice that we have yards times yards. So that's going to be yards squared. Okay, because we're talking about two-dimensional. Okay, and then we take 15 times 13, which means the area of that shape is 195 yards squared. Okay? All right, so we just go past that percentage problem. And then remember that a triangle, whatever the triangle is, this is our height, right? Because it's based off of how tall is the triangle. And then the two things that are always adjacent is the height and the base. Okay, so we always take the area of a triangle is the base times the height divided by 2. So our base is 18, our height is 7. 18 times 7 is 126 divided by 2 is 63 yards squared. That's the area of this triangle. It's actually half the area of the parallelogram this would make. That's where we get the divided by 2. Okay, but what you need to remember is these two formulas. So again, some of you might struggle with that, so I would make flashcards of it because you're not going to have a reference sheet to use. So the best way to learn that is take flashcards, have on the front area of a triangle, on the back base times height divided by 2. If you look at that card, quizzing yourself to where you have it memorized, look at it 10 to 20 times. It's going to be in your brain. If you use color, it's going to be easier to retrieve out of your brain. And then when you're on the quiz, that's the first thing you're going to dump onto the paper is you're just going to do a brain dump of all the formulas you need to remember so you can access those without worrying about the stress. That's my best suggestion for that. If you can remember these and the area of a rectangle is just base times height also, you're going to be fine. Okay? So when we look at composite figures, we're talking about shapes that are made up of different shapes. And then figuring out the area and being careful that you don't count something twice or you don't count it where it shouldn't have been counted. Okay? You're going to have to do some addition and subtraction after you figure out the areas. If we look at a simple one, like this example, basically when we look at the area, if we could break it, there's a lot of ways to break this up. If I were to break it up, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 5 square units. Okay, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 square units. The area of this is the area of the first rectangle plus the area of the second rectangle. So I'm going to add 5 plus 6 square units. So I have 11 square units. 11 units squared. That's how I'd write that. Okay, we look at the same thing over here. You could break this up. Now, you got to think when you do this, right? And you got to be careful. But you got to break it up the way you see best. And then you're going to have to make some conclusions. You're going to have to draw some conclusions from what you have. So if I break this up, I'm going to break it into 2 rectangles. Okay, but to do the area of these 2 rectangles, this one's pretty simple because it basically goes from here to here and here to here. That's the rectangle. It's a 4 by 9, 4 by 9, which means it's 36 meters squared. Right? Then I have to look at this one and I have to figure out what this length right here is. Well, but if I continue this over, I know that this is 5 meters from here to here, and it's 9 meters altogether, so this must be 4 meters, because 5 plus 4 is 9. So that means this side is 4 meters, which means that this would become 4 by 4, which is 16 meters squared. So I'm going to add the 16 meters squared plus the 36 meters squared, which would give me 52 meters squared for the whole area. Okay, now you might have broken it up a different way. And as long as you came out with 52 meters squared, the key, what you want to know is, how do I want you to show your work? I want you to show me how you calculated, and then how you added them together, and what your total was. You need to be careful to make sure you're giving me the right units, that it's either meters squared. If I'm doing area, it's always square units, right? And that you have the right solution. You've got to be careful, and it's going to help if you can sketch out what you did. Okay? So that's the main key part of it. If you look at this one, so here's that part where I'm going to have you go ahead and let's see if you can figure this one out. I don't think this one's horrible. So try this one out. See if you can break it up into 2 rectangles, and what would you come up with for the area of this shape? Go ahead, look at it, see if you can do it. If you get it, you're done. Let's see how you do. Good luck. Okay, so you should have come up with 15 centimeters squared. If you didn't come up with 15 centimeters squared, then you need to watch, you look at it first, see if you know what you did wrong. And if you don't know what you did wrong, then come back to the extended video if you want. Okay? All right, so that's that. Let's look at some harder problems. These 2 are difficult because what these 2 have is they have a hole cut out. And so I'll go over this again in class, but you need to understand this is like a hole being cut out. So if we look, we have a big rectangle with a small rectangle cut out. So this rectangle right here is the part we cut out. So I would write out, if I was doing this problem, I would write it out as this. I'm going to find the big minus the small. Then I'm going to remember that the area of a rectangle is length times width. Same thing for the small rectangle, it's length times width. I'm going to plug in the values, do the math, which means I'm going to have 16 centimeters times 9 centimeters minus 7 centimeters times 5 centimeters. Calculation, 16 times 9 is 144, so I have 144 centimeters squared minus 35 centimeters squared because I'm cutting that hole out, which means my area is 109 centimeters squared. Okay? So when you're looking at that, you've got to look and ask yourselves, am I cutting a hole out? Or am I adding a piece on? Or am I breaking it up, adding it together? Or am I cutting a piece out? And what are the areas of those pieces? That's all you're doing. Okay, if you look, these two shapes we added, we cut them into two pieces and said we have two pieces we're adding together. When you look at these two pieces, we're cutting it out. Okay, and again, when you look at this next one, then you're really taking a rectangle minus a triangle. You could also look at it as a trapezoid, but I'm going to suggest, for me, it's easier to look at it the rectangle minus a triangle. So why don't you go ahead and see if you can figure that one out. Be careful, because there's that part of the triangle that can cause a mistake. So be careful. So go ahead and do this one. Let's see how you do. Okay, so if you did this right, you should have come out with 30 feet squared for your area. Okay, so again, if you didn't get that answer, or if perhaps you're not sure how you showed your work for that, then you're going to want to watch the extended part of this video. Okay, but if you did get 30 feet squared and you can show your work for this, man, we're good. Let's move on to the next thing. Now, here's the scary part. Now we're going to throw circles in. Okay, but really, all we're doing is still adding or subtracting. If you look, we still have a rectangle minus a half circle, two half circles, right? That's a rectangle. Take away two half circles, which, by the way, two half circles is a whole circle because 2 times 1/2 is 2 halves, which is one circle. So you do have to remember what we learned was that the area of a circle is pi times r, or pi r squared. And what you have to remember is this measure from here to here is the diameter. So what would the radius be? Okay, and the radius is half the diameter. All right, so that means this radius is 5 centimeters. In this situation, we have one whole circle that we're cutting out. So we're going to take the area of the rectangle and subtract from it the area of the circle. So we need to remember our formulas. So we're going to remember that the area of a rectangle is length times width, and the area of a circle is pi times r times r. And then we're just going to substitute it in and show our work. So we plug in the value. Then we have 26 times the 10 minus pi times 5 times 5. So that's going to give us 260 centimeters squared minus 3.14 times 25 centimeters squared, which is 260 minus 78.5 centimeters squared, which means the area that we're talking about that's still shaded orange is 181.5 centimeters squared. Okay, that's the work to that. So now look at this one. How would you do that one? Look at it, be careful, think to yourself, how is it different? How is it the same? Notice, and let's see how you do with it. Okay, so set this one up, see how you do. Okay, you should have come out with 370.93 feet squared. Hey, if you did that right, you know what you're doing. This next one's harder, but you know what you're doing. So you could just pat yourself on the back, feel confident, and move on. If you don't know how to do this, you're not sure how you came up with that, you want to watch the extended video or come to class with some questions. Okay? We think that you've already seen some of this. You may have forgotten it. It's been a whole year since you've seen it. But if you do remember it, no reason to spend more time on it. Okay, so the next one we're going to look at is a little bit more difficult. Usually students struggle with this. This is called a concentric circle. Okay, so really though, if you think about it, you're taking the big minus the small. You're cutting a hole out. Okay, you're basically cutting out this hole. Okay, you're cutting out the orange piece. And so what you know is that you're going to cut out something that has a radius of 8 meters. That's the size of your hole. And you started out with something that has a radius of 11 meters. So you're still taking the big minus the small. What you're applying is your understanding of circles. So let's see if you could do this one. If you can do this one, you got it nailed. If not, you might want to watch the extended video. Okay, so try this one. Good luck. Let's see how you do. Okay, so you should come out with 178.98 meters squared. Okay, so now if this is what you came out with and you got this nailed, that's the hardest problem you're going to face. For most students, that's the hardest one. You're done. You're done with the video. If you don't understand it, then go watch the extended so you can and come to class with questions. Because this is not the easiest thing, but it's not impossible. And just remember, I mean, one day I went to a restaurant with my son-in-law and we ordered this huge steak. This huge mammoth steak. It was like 32 ounces, 2 pounds of steak. And if I tried to shove that whole thing in my mouth, not only would I have not enjoyed it as much, but I would have choked and died. And I don't want you to choke and die on these problems. Take them a little bit at a time. Remember, figure out the area of the big circle and then from this area, subtract the area of the small circle from it. And take it a bit at a time. Show your work. Make sure you're able to see where you're going to make mistakes. You're becoming very, very good at showing your work and communicating your understanding. 98% of you are doing great at that. So keep it up and then come with questions. Good luck. Now, if you need further explanations, then just keep watching. We'll go back to the ones that we left blank so we could just do the math, explain it to you. But if you understood these, you're done. Just come to class with questions. Okay, this one. Okay, remember what we're doing is we're going to take the big and we're going to add these two together. It's like they've been nailed together. So we look, and this is a 2 by 6. So 2 times 6, that's 12 centimeters squared. Right? So we're going to take rectangle 1, we're going to take the area of rectangle 1, and we're going to add to it the area of rectangle 2. Area of the first rectangle is going to be 2 centimeters times 6 centimeters, which is 12 centimeters squared. Okay, and the area of the second rectangle is going to be the 3 centimeters times the 1 centimeter, which is going to give us 3 centimeters squared, which means our area is 12 plus 3 is 15 centimeters squared. Now, guys, I'm going to tell you that when I was doing it quickly, I switched the units to feet. And so you got to be careful, okay? Be careful. Don't switch the units. Be careful. Look back. Make sure you're writing the right units, because some of you are going to write the wrong units, or you're not going to put centimeters squared. And then when you take the quiz or you do the when you do the assignment, it's just going to tell you you're wrong. But when you take the quiz, you're going to walk up to me and say, I wasn't careful, and on the quiz I put down centimeters, but I meant centimeters squared, and I'm going to have to say, ooh, well, take the quiz again. Because at that point, it's I don't know which way it was. So just be careful, okay? Okay, so again, if you don't understand what we just did, then you got to come and ask questions in class, because this is just you're fast forwarding to the problems you don't understand how to do. Okay, so for me, when I look at this one, I'm going to look at the big rectangle, and then I'm going to say I'm taking a chunk out. Okay, so right away, we got to notice that there was a mistake. This should not be 30 feet squared. This should be 42 feet squared. Okay, so again, you got to be careful, right? Okay, so if you got 42 feet squared and you were thinking, well, how the heck did you come up with 30? You're right, I was wrong. And you know what I did wrong? You know what I did wrong? I didn't cut the triangle in half. All right, so I did it fast and didn't think about it. Okay, let's look. Okay, so we're going to have the big rectangle, right? And then we're going to cut out the triangle. Okay, so we're going to cut that triangle out. Now that triangle has the dimensions of 6 by 4, because if I look, it's 3 feet here and it's 9 feet altogether, so that must be 6 feet. And this is 6 feet altogether. That part's 2 feet. This must be 4 feet. So the area for a rectangle is length times width, and the area for a triangle is base times height divided by 2. So now we're just going to plug those numbers in. So we have 6 feet by 9 feet, which is 54 feet. And then we're going to subtract the 24 divided by 2, which is 12 feet. And this is squared. We got to make sure we remember that's squared. And 54 feet minus 12 feet squared is 42 feet squared. Good. So then we did this one. Now let's look at this one. Okay, so what I'm hoping you see is you're just adding two things. You're going to add the rectangle. So we're going to take the area of the rectangle and we're going to add the area of the half circle. Okay, so we got to plug in the formula, which the formula for the rectangle is length times width, and it's 21 by 14, right? And then, so that gives us 294 feet squared, plus now we have to take pi, which is 3.14, times 7 times 7, and divide it by 2, which means we're going to have 294 plus 76.93. Remember, we're talking about feet, so it's going to be feet squared. When we add those together, we get 370.93 feet squared. Okay, so that's how we do that one. Now let's look at this one. Again, we're just taking the big circle minus the small circle. But we're talking about circles, right? So the formula is the same, right? So we're going to take, for the big circle, we're going to look at, say, the radius for the big circle is 11. So we're going to have 3.14 times 11 times 11 minus 3.14 times 8 times 8, right? Because it's the radius. This is the radius of the small circle. The radius of the big circle is 11. So now we just calculate those. So we get 379.94 minus 200.96. Remember that we're talking about meters squared for both of these. And we wind up with 178.98 meters squared. Okay, that's a lot to swallow. But if you've got it all, if you just do the little parts, you're going to be fine. You got to be patient with yourself. You got to do bit by bit. This is called a concentric circle, where there's a circle within another circle. Concentric, they have the same center, right? Con means same. Okay. All right. Hey, so this isn't easy. You can come with questions, and I'll expect them. Okay. Make sure you're looking at your extra problems on your work and asking questions about that. But here we go. Good luck. This isn't impossible. It's not easy. It's simple, but you have to learn the pattern. Okay, good luck.